Posted March 20, 2019. 6 hours 13 minutes and 38 seconds. A growing number of women and men are signing up to play Australian rules in Europe, and there are hopes a women-only league will be established in Switzerland in the next few years. Key points. Australian rules has 4,487 players in Europe, where mixed matches are currently played. 44% of Australian rules players outside of Australia are women. The first all-women's tournament was played in Europe on March 9, strengthening hopes for an all-women's league. Catherine Della spent her childhood playing Auskick with the boys, and played Australian rules while attending the Australian National University in Canberra. When the 30-year-old moved to Switzerland 18 months ago, she had no idea the sports would once again become part of her life. Geneva has a large expat population, a lot of those are Australians, and I heard via word of mouth about people who were trying to get an AFL team together. Ms. Della said, "I had no idea that I would have the chance to play AFL when I moved to Europe, so it was a really nice surprise." In late 2018, Ms. Della was a member of the Geneva Jets team that travelled to nearby Winterthur to play in a 3-team tournament. The Geneva team was made up of both men and women and returned home as the inaugural champions of the Switzerland AFL League. Men and women play mixed game. SMS Della and her Swiss teammates play a modified version of the game featuring 9 players on the field for 20-minute halves. The 3 teams are from Geneva, Winterthur and Basel, and there are rumours of a 4th side coming together in Zurich. So far the Swiss league is mixed. Ms. Della said, "There are no official rules for how to deal with the women on the field. It's just sort of understood that the men probably shouldn't tackle us quite as hard. Our game does feature full-on tackling. It is proper AFL rules, but with just 9 on the field at any point in time." In Geneva, the game is played on a smaller rugby field, using rugby goals for 1 set of goals along with some homemade point posts. "I think the skill level is surprisingly high," Ms. Della said. "What's really nice about it is that there is such a mix of age ranges. In the Geneva team we have people in their 50s and teenagers, and everything in between. You have some players who are slightly more skilled, slightly more fit, but the standard and the spirit in which we play means that people of all skill levels can get involved. It's quite a small field, so there's a lot of sharing the ball around. Australia rules is for everyone, while the Geneva team is made up of almost all Australian expats. There is a player from Canada who spent his teenage years playing the game in Toronto. Many of the Winterthur players are believed to be former rugby players who have been taught Australian rules by an Australian-Swiss dual national who developed a love of the game while living in Australia as a child. Swiss teacher Ulrike Senti, 24, fell in love with Australian rules when she studied abroad in Tasmania a few years ago. She wanted to continue playing once she returned to Europe, and after a long search, she discovered the Winterthur Lions team. Ms. Senti is now the head of women's development for AFL Switzerland. "It's a really challenging game, but that's what I love about it," she said. "No one is perfect at the beginning. You just need to practice, and it needs different skills, which is why I really like it. You not only have to run fast, but you have to get to know the ball's bounce." Handballing is also a big challenge for people from Europe because we're not used to a bouncing ball. Ms. Senti said having Australian teammates playing in the Swiss league reminded her of life in Tasmania. "It is awesome to have Aussies in terms of footy and also in terms of my language," she said. "I'm still practicing talking to them and getting to know Australian culture even better. I already fell in love with Australia when I was in Tasmania, so that's why I really enjoy my job." Global spread of women in AFL. According to the AFL, there are 4,487 participants playing in Europe, and 1,165 of those are female. More than 180,000 people play outside of Australia, and 44% of those players are women. The countries with the biggest female participation are Papua New Guinea, South Africa and the South Pacific nations. The Australian Football International Cup has been held in Melbourne every 3 years since 2002 and features a men's and women's competition. An all-female Australian rules tournament, the Gallia Cup, was held in France on March 9 and saw teams from Germany, England and France and the Netherlands take part. Ms. Senti was part of a group of Swiss women who combined forces with some German players to field a side in the Cup. They ended up winning the tournament. It was the first all-women's competition that we have seen, Ms. Della said. In the past couple of years the women's element has been growing rapidly. I certainly think AFL seems to be giving some European women the opportunity to get involved in sport where they might not have otherwise had that opportunity, because you don't really see much of it around, to be honest. Women's league in the works. Both Ms. Della and Ms. Senti hope to see an all-women's competition established in Switzerland. The mixed comp is great at the moment, but the dream would be to have individual women's teams from different cities that can play against each other, Ms. Della said. Hopefully this tournament in Paris has generated some momentum, and certainly one of the next exciting things on the horizon is the Euro Cup. The Euro Cup is an annual nine-a-side tournament in which national sides face off to contest for the title of Champions of Europe. The 2019 event will be held in Norrtälje, Sweden. The Swiss men's team played last year, and for the first time we will be sending a women's team, Ms. Della said. We will see how that goes in terms of generating a bit of publicity for AFL in Switzerland, particularly for the women. Topics: Australian Football League, sport, winter sports, sports organisations, international competitions, Switzerland, Perth 6000, Canberra 2600, South Africa, Tonga, Netherlands, France, England, Germany, Solomon Islands, Sweden, Samoa, Vanuatu, Fiji, Nauru, Canada, Papua New Guinea, Australian National University 0200.